Hello, and welcome to another episode of my adventures of perfect imperfection. Today I want to talk about something near and dear to my heart, which I actually resist with all of my might, which is this idea of good enough. I hate to admit it, I have got a pretty strong perfectionist streak, and it's really hard to accept things not being perfect. I can always see things to improve, and one of the reasons that I just end up dragging my heels on things, like doing this video series, is because I want to get it perfect. That was the reason that in the last one I went up in a tree, because I couldn't get around. I couldn't do any tinkering when I was up in the tree. I just had to do it. And there was something beautifully symbolic about that, actually. And so today I want to talk about the idea of good enough. And I want to talk about the superpowers of good enough, because I think that, especially for those of us that struggle with this misguided notion that everything needs to be perfect, good enough can be one of the most powerful things that you can develop. So what does good enough enable? Good enough really opens the doors to all kinds of things. And so I want to talk about what that enables. The first thing, and possibly the most important thing, that good enough enables is action. And I'll use what I'm doing here with this video. I've been working on trying to get a setup where I've got the swanky white background and a video setup that I can just sit down and share my thoughts like this. Now, you know, it certainly is coming along, but it's not looking like I want it to. I really still don't know what I'm doing. It's been this exploration. I'm not completely happy with the lighting. Not completely happy with the lighting on my face. And I can't tell you how many trips to Home Depot I've made, finding lights and getting more lights, etc., etc. And oh, this is not quite working, and okay, I need to do this differently, etc. And finally, I just went, you know what? I am going to perfect this until it never happens. And so I need to, figuratively speaking, get myself back up in that tree. And I just need to do something. So I got it to a point where, while it's not perfect, it's not, you know, it's not fabulous, it's not wonderful, it's not necessarily something that you're going to look at and say, hey, Kurt, that looks like a real professional setup you've got going there. It felt like it was at a place where, hey, this is good enough. I can share some ideas. I can keep learning from what it is that I'm doing. But most importantly, it's good enough and I can take action. And taking action means that I can put something new out there and I can keep the momentum going and I can build on this. So that's the first piece, is simply good enough enables action. The second piece is related to that, and that is that good enough enables learning. Because guess what? You take the action and then you can see what happened. So I'm going to do this. I'm going to put this out there. I'm going to be able to see what it is like once I get it uploaded to YouTube. I'm going to have a better idea of what kind of changes that I need to make in the lighting. Probably people out there that have better idea than I do will say, hey, Kurt, here's what's wrong with that. Here's a suggestion. Who knows? But none of that would happen if I just sat here and tried to perfect it and tried to perfect it and tried to perfect it. So learning, so good enough enables action and it enables learning. Another piece intimately tied to those is it enables progress. It enables you to actually move forward. And so that is tied into this whole idea of perfect imperfection. Perfect imperfection and good enough really often go hand in hand, and they facilitate progress. Which doesn't mean that you can't refine it as you're going down the road, but refining it until it's perfect enough for the world to see is a great recipe for nothing to happen. So moving forward, this idea of good enough is incredibly powerful. Another thing that it does is it reduces this self-criticism. if you are looking at things and you are taking a good enough philosophy, and so, for example, I put this out there. If I'm expecting I've got to have this perfect thing, and I put this out there, and I look at it and I go, oh, God, I don't like this. I don't like how I said that. I don't like how this looks. I don't like this shiny nose that I have and this shiny forehead that I have. Well, I always have a shiny forehead. Little side funny. A woman actually asked me if I shined my head one time. I thought, you're pretty lucky I'm not sensitive about that. I had to laugh. But back to the matter at hand. So it frees you up from self-criticism because you know that it's not perfect. That's not the point of it. The point is to put something out there and to keep moving forward and to build on what you put out there. Whatever it is that you're trying to accomplish, whatever you're trying to achieve. Another thing that it does is it frees up time. How much time do you spend on trying to get things perfect that don't need that amount of time? They don't need that amount of time spent with them, and that amount of time could be put towards something much more important, whether that is on achieving what it is that you want to achieve, whether that is spending quality time with family, whatever it is. I think that there is, in trying to get things perfect, there's a lot of time that we spend that just doesn't need to be spent. So leaving you here with just a couple of questions that you can ask as you go along here. And thinking in terms of this idea of good enough and any kind of inclination to do things perfectly. First question is, does this need to be perfect? So, for example, with my video here, does it need to be perfect? Would I like it to be perfect? Absolutely. It's like, perfect, yay, we like that. But it doesn't need to be perfect. What does it need to be? It needs to be. It needs to exist. And if I try to get it perfect, it's not going to exist. So the answer to that question, does it need to be perfect? No. Another question related to that is, what if it's not? What if I do something and it's not perfect? Because one of the things that we so often do is, whoa, if this is not perfect, then... and we fill in the blank, and it becomes really just this catastrophe zone. And the reality is, if it's not perfect, usually, that's about the result. If you're doing brain surgery or some such thing, yeah, you probably want to have a little bit more perfection obsession. But for the most part, the things that we get really tied up and spooled up about getting perfect, if it's not perfect, the consequences for that are infinitely less than the consequences of not doing anything because we're trying to get something perfect. So all of that ties into this adventure of perfect imperfection. And so building on that idea of perfect imperfection and the concept of good enough. So I invite you in the coming week just to look around at what it is that you're doing. Is there anything that you are doing that you need to say, you know what, that's good enough, I'm going to take action, or that's good enough, I'm going to move on. And see what happens, see what that opens up, see what doors that opens up. And then I would love to hear what comes out of that for you. So until next time, this is me and my swanky white wall, and we'll see how the looks of this evolve over time as well. So I appreciate your being along for the ride with me in my exploration, and come on back. Thank you much.